Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. High fuel prices in Barbados fall under the national spotlight. This story takes the lead in our 1134th edition of Caribbean Perspective for Wednesday, 16th June 2021. Details after this break.
Hubbard's big promotion is back. Live free for 1 year. Spend $50 or more in any Hubbard's department and receive a chance to win big prizes every month. Property or vehicle insurance for 1 year. Free internet, cable and data for 1 year. Free fuel for 1 year. Free cooking gas for 1 year. Free electricity for 1 year. Free drinks for 1 year. Extra cash account and the big free groceries for 1 year. Promotion runs from April 1st to September 30th, 2021. Live free for 1 year with Hubbard's in association with Solgas, Flow, Grenadian General Insurance, Carib Brewery, Coca-Cola, Grenada Bottling Company, Grenlec, Communal Cooperative Credit Union, Dutch Lady Milk, Promo, Danny and Supreme. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. Government of Barbados examines options to tackle high fuel prices. Details in this Barbados Today news item.
Government is looking at all options to address high fuel prices. Energy Minister Kerry Simmons gave this assurance today amid public outcry about fuel costs at the pumps. Over the weekend, one activist urged Barbadians to protest the high prices by just filling up with 1 litre of petrol. Minister Simmons says while government is aware of the pressure on consumers, there's no escaping the surge in global prices.
The evidence, and I want to stress this, the evidence before us does not point generally in the direction of people acting in a malicious way, as in a wicked way in Barbados. The evidence largely points to the fact that this country, as with almost every other country on planet Earth, is facing an extremely serious situation insofar as surges of prices are concerned. Once you're talking about product that is imported, then you are talking about price surges. And that applies across the board from mighty United States of America right down to little Barbados. If you watch CNN News or watch BBC News, you're seeing the same concerns being articulated. I appreciate that people would want to express their own individual concern as it hits them in the pocket. I caution them to apply the best possible analyses and prudence in their decision making. Frankly, I will not spend my time driving from gas station to gas station just to replace a liter of fuel. That is a nonsense. There is truth to the fact that the prices have surged. The government is conscious of it and looking at all options.
He says while government seeks a solution to the problem, Barbadians should consider reducing their driving.
The government moved road taxes away from the pocket of the consumer and shifted a lot of the tax structure onto the petrol pump. Now, if you had to pay, let's say, $1,000 in road tax or $1,500 in road tax, then obviously you can't avoid that, or you're on the road illegally. But you have some control at the petrol pump. You can, wherever possible, limit the amount of driving about you do on a weekend or at night or whatever, so that there's an element of control to manage this situation in the hands of people which did not previously exist.
Over in Trinidad, Ministry of Health representatives were pressed for answers by reporters on the circumstances surrounding a donation of Pfizer vaccines from the US to the Ministry of National Security, which the country only learned of on Sunday, 1 day after it had arrived. TV6's Renessa Cutting reports.
So the Ministry of Health would have been made aware of the incoming shipment prior to its arrival into Trinidad and Tobago. And that second bit of your question related to national security, I think that's better posed to national security. They will know, and Minister Hines would have made a statement indicating that it is for national security without giving further detail.
Ministry of Health officials could not say exactly when they were notified that Pfizer vaccines were en route to Trinidad from the United States, instead indicating that they were informed just a short time before the vaccines arrived. However, when asked whether this was standard procedure and how it was determined that the vaccines would go to national security, the chief medical officer would only say this.
There was communique between the Ministry of National Security and their counterpart in the US. That donation was forthcoming to them. We were alerted as the Ministry of Health with responsibility for two things: the importation of vaccines as well as the regulation of vaccines. So customs would have alerted us when it was actually in the airport. Our principal pharmacist would have actually gone in physically and took control of the vaccines. We now have it in a bonded facility, which means that it's bonded pending use.
The chief medical officer further explained that the Ministry of Health is still awaiting certain documentation from the Ministry of National Security before the vaccines can be released.
We expect to get some information as it relates to invoicing, which is part and parcel of the importation requirements, and to the regulatory documents in terms of a clinical dossier, which will allow us to see where the Pfizer product was manufactured and all of that. It will be considered by the Drug Advisory Committee, and then we can say whether it is a vaccine that can be utilized in Trinidad and Tobago.
Media personnel could not get a direct response as to whether this sequence of events is within standard operating procedure, given that key information about the shipment is still outstanding at this time.
Again, the initiation of this whole process was through national security, and I think that question will be better posed to national security.
On Sunday, the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Spain tweeted that it had made a donation of 80 vials of Pfizer vaccines to this country. The Ministry of National Security also confirmed that the so-called gift would be used solely for national security personnel, but did not give details as to exactly who would receive the vaccines. Renessa Cutting, TV6 News.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. The clanging sound of cooking utensils was once again in the air as supporters of St. Lucia's opposition Labour Party hosted another weekend of Pan Sunday activities. Joachim Duplessis of HTS News Force reports.
It was a carnival-like atmosphere in the capital city as St. Lucia Labour Party supporters, adorned in red attire and waving paraphernalia, took to the streets of the capital in the latest episode of Pan Sunday. The syncopated rhythms of scores of followers banging cooking utensils are in keeping with the rally cry for Prime Minister Alan Chasney and the ruling United Workers' Party to declare an election date. June 6, 2021, the 5th anniversary of the previous election, was the Rubicon moment that critics say have compelled them to agitate for the government leader to stick to convention. Staunch critic of the Alan Chasney regime, former Castries Central MP Richard Frederick was among those who turned out to voice their revulsion with the current dispensation.
If I did not take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you who is fighting for the cause. The cause is not mine. It is not yours. It's all of us. because when we see, and please follow the protocols, I just want to show that my mask was just broken, so to speak. So I'm asking for forgiveness in that regard.
Frederick made an impassioned plea to participants in attendance to support opposition leader Philip J. Pierre's bid for Prime Minister. He pointed to what he says is the stark contrast in leadership style with the current holder of the highest office in the land.
I urge each and every one of you to support Philip J. Pierre. Folks, we have been there with Alan Shasley. We have done that with Alan Shasley. We cannot repeat the mistake of 2013. Let us do what we have to do to hand this country into the hands of a man who was born in poverty, who understands it like us, and who will give each and every one of us a first slice of the cake.
Joachim de Blasi, HTS News Force.
Both the opposition and proposition in Guyana's House of Assembly went head-to-head on the price of vaccines, with the opposition claiming the WHO list price is much less than the government is claiming to pay outside of the corridors of the WHO. Gordon Mosley of News Source Guyana has some details.
The government and the APNU-AFC opposition went head-to-head this afternoon in the Committee of Supplies in the National Assembly, as the government sought to justify spending of $1.3 billion to purchase vaccines. The government recently spent approximately $957 million for the purchase of 200,000 doses of the Sputnik V vaccine and $326 million for the Chinese Sinopharm vaccine. During the grilling of the costs attached to the purchase of the vaccines, opposition leader Joe Harmon cited a World Health Organization report. In that report, he said the cost cited is less than half of the cost that the Guyana government is paying for the vaccines. The health minister explained that Guyana is not getting the vaccines directly from Russia, but rather there was an arrangement in place with the United Arab Emirates, and it was through that arrangement that the vaccines were being purchased.
Mr. Speaker, when I calculated it, it works out, Honorable Minister, for the Sinovac at $16 per shot. The Sputnik about $24 per shot. The report I read from the WHO, it's called Sizing Up the Shots, lists these vaccines, that is to say the Sputnik, at $10 per shot, and the Sinovac at $5 per shot. Would you say whether in fact this is a reasonable price we have paid of $24 for the Sputnik and $16 for the Sinovac in the circumstance?
If the leader of the opposition can today get Sputnik V for $10 and the Sinovac for $5, then the government of Guyana would certainly want to buy from the source that the leader of the opposition would be able to get. So the thing here is availability. If it's not available, then we have to buy at the price that we're getting it at.
What I'm saying, this is the World Health Organization saying that these are the prices, and we are paying almost double what it has said. What you have now indicated also is that apart from the vaccine itself, you're factoring in here the cost of transportation from wherever you purchase it to here. So we need to know all of these things, Honorable Minister. It's important for all of us to know. So I am not saying that I have vaccines to sell, but what I'm saying as a Guyanese, we are here interrogating sums of money that have already been spent. And so we need to know how this money was spent, that's all.
Guyana has spent just about $22 per dose of the Sputnik vaccine, while the listed cost is $10 per dose. Meanwhile, opposition member of parliament Tabitha Sarabu-Halley also sought clarity from the health minister about the purchase of the vaccines. She questioned why the government did not budget for the vaccine in the national budget a few months ago, when it was known then that vaccines would need to be purchased. In response, the health minister said enough information was not available at that time.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the Food Fair from anywhere in the world, and you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now makes it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket, and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.